Hi, I'm Sanara Madani, and I'm a mom of two, a daughter of an immigrant, and an unlikely entrepreneur who went from scaling an idea to $1 billion business. Yes, $1 billion business. Along the way, I learned that less than 2% of female founders ever hit 1 million in revenue, and I became obsessed on a mission to change that. I believe that there is so much gatekeeping in business knowledge, and that we as female entrepreneurs should be learning from other female founders and leaders who have broken the statistics. Since I never went to CEO school, I've had to learn it all the hard way, but you shouldn't have to, because we believe that you deserve to have it all. And honestly, nothing bad happens when women make more money. Grab a seat because class is officially in session. Welcome to CEO School. Hello, and welcome to CEO School, everyone. I am so excited for today's incredible guest and fireside chat speaker today, Amy Porterfield. I have been trying to get Amy on the show here for, I think, over a year, and we just haven't been able to make calendars align, honestly. It's just been, this is what happens when you have two incredibly busy women doing amazing things. And Amy is not only a dear friend, but a mentor of mine, somebody that I've been looking up to for so many years. And I'm just so excited to have her here with us today to get to know her story, her background, her journey to the 2% Club, but most importantly, learning tactical tips on how we can get there too. So we're in for such a treat. And honestly, Amy, welcome to CEO School.
Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to be here. So thanks so much for having me.
I am so excited. And if you haven't heard of Amy Porterfield, you're living under a rock or you just don't go on Instagram. But Amy Porterfield is an entrepreneur who has a top 10, I think, marketing podcast show. And it's one of the best resources for online marketers. So it's Marketing Made Easy, and it's all about scaling and building your company, a digital company. And Amy is honestly the guru of course creation. She was one of the first pioneers in the space, and she has helped thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs worldwide start and scale their courses. Amy also is just not only just an incredible human. She lives in Nashville. Incredible husband and dog mom as well. And she is also on the journey of her book that is going to be launching as well. So Amy is somebody that I learn from every single day. Her accolades, I mean, she's been featured in every magazine from Entrepreneur to Forbes. She's made every list ever. And she's also a fellow podcast host within the HubSpot network. So today I'm so excited to introduce to you formally, I think it's our first, we had Jenna on the show, but this is formally my first ever co-hosted HubSpot entrepreneurial show. So Amy, welcome again. And thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you. What an intro. Thanks so much for having me. My most favorite thing to do is talk to other women entrepreneurs or aspiring women entrepreneurs. It's my favorite group. So this is going to be a treat.
No, I'm so pumped. I mean, Amy, let's, kind of kick us off with your background and your story. I'd love to hear about your journey as an entrepreneur. Where did it get started? And how did you kind of fall into the course space?
So I always say I'm an ex-corporate girl turned accidental entrepreneur because I always thought I would be working in corporate. I worked for Harley Davidson at the dealership levels, moved on to work for peak performance coach Tony Robbins, and that was the last corporate job I had. I was with them for almost 6 years, and I was the director of content development, which meant I got to travel the world with Tony and work on the content that he did on stage at events like Unleash the Power Within and Date with Destiny. If you know Tony, you know those events. But what happened was one day he had brought in a bunch of internet marketing gurus, essentially. And we were in the San Diego office. He brought all these guys in because Tony was doing more in the online space and he was curious about their business.
By the way, I'm going to pause you. You're just like Tony. Like, you're just like, oh, it's
yeah, Tony Robbins. Yeah, I probably should be a little careful of that, little flippant. But yeah, so Tony Robbins brought in a bunch of these guys and he went around the table and he's like, tell me about your businesses. And I was brought into the meeting to take notes. That's how humbling it was. I was at a separate table and I was taking notes. And these guys went around one by one to talk about their online businesses. And they were from all different walks of life, teaching all different things: dating, finances, real estate, all these different topics. Every one of them had a digital course, and every single one of them talked about lifestyle freedom. That's all I heard when they talked about their businesses: lifestyle freedom, creativity freedom, financial freedom. And I thought, I am so far from being free right now. It's not even funny. I've always had a boss. And in that moment, I thought, I need to figure out how to have my own business. I have to figure this out. I want more freedom more than anything in the world. So it was about a year from that fateful meeting that I actually decided to take the leap and start my own business. The first 2 years were a disaster. I created a business I hated. I didn't make a lot of money. But after the first 2 years, I finally got my groove, started creating digital courses to teach online marketing, and it exploded. And now today I'm best known for how to take your expertise and knowledge and know-how and turn that into a profitable digital course. So now I teach other people how to do what I created.
I mean, you made that sound so easy breezy. And I kind of want to go back in there and talk about, you know, having that core. I think many of us as entrepreneurs really do start working, you know, for somebody else, seeing a problem or seeing an opportunity. And I love that your opportunity wasn't necessarily fixing a problem. It was the lifestyle. And you were like, I'm really attracted to this freedom that everyone's talking about. And those are two, like, that's one of two reasons why I think, as entrepreneurs, our biggest wishes of when we're starting a business is freedom of time and freedom of dollar. Those are definitely the two reasons why I started the business. And then of course, having that purpose as well. Otherwise the business doesn't succeed. How did you come about finding that purpose? Because it looks like when you started, how did you even know what to get started in? And, what was your expertise at the time? What happened within the 2 years that you wish you knew now to help prevent others that are kind of in that similar boat starting off? What can we learn from your mistakes in that first 2 years?
Oh, yes, so much. So in my first 2 years, I ventured out on my own thinking I want to create digital courses and I want to sell them online. I knew I wanted to teach and sell online to the masses, but I had no idea how to create a digital course. So what I did instead is I started to take a bunch of clients and I did social media for small businesses. I had known that. I had done that at Robbins. So it was like, okay, this is what I know. I can make money with this. So I rushed into this idea of I can make money this way and realized quickly I hated it. I didn't like working one-on-one with clients. There was only so much money you can make, only one of you and many of them. I was young and didn't know how to set boundaries. That was another huge mistake I made. So I got into a boss trap. I call it a boss trap because I went out to be on my own, but then I let my clients be my bosses, and they bossed me around at all hours of the day, had incredible demands on me. And I said yes to everything out of desperation. What if I lose a client? What if I don't have enough clients? So a few lessons that I learned in my first 2 years that other people do not have to repeat is, number one, get clear on what you really want to create. It will morph and shape and change over the years, but don't do something out of pure desperation that you've got to move away from this. So I'm just going to do whatever I can to do this right now, because you can actually get into a really deep, dark hole of, oh my gosh, I created this for 2 years and I don't want this. So take a moment to really understand what you want to do and how you want to do it. And you can figure out anything. You don't have to just jump into what you know right now. So you can learn anything you want to learn to create anything you want in your business. I believe that. Another thing is get really clear on your boundaries. What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? Because as you leave a 9-to-5 job and you step into more freedom, you can create walls all around you without boundaries. You can be working all hours of the day, into the night, all weekends. You could have way too many clients and not enough time to help them. Boundaries are something that we usually don't have in the beginning of starting our businesses. And it's that one thing that we need more than anything.
I love that. And I wish, honestly, I would have taken that advice my first 2 years as well. And honestly, some of those things I'm still working on, especially when you talk about from a boundary standpoint. I think some of these things we're constantly having to learn and adjust. And, it's also important, something that I do want to kind of challenge on a little bit. I agree with boundaries fully, but also, especially in the first years of building your business, there is a lot of trial and error too.
Yes.
So before you come in, and I see a lot of entrepreneurs and we're having a lot of discussions on freedom and lifestyle and boundaries, which I wholeheartedly agree with. but I also want to be realistic of what it actually takes to go build a business. And it also requires sometimes those long nights and those weekends. And it makes it easier if you know your purpose, or if you know like this is what you really want to do, or you're seeing like the needle move, then we should be doing it. But I think when boundaries come in is when we're not, that's actually not adding to our goal or adding to our purpose or adding to those things. And I think there's a clear differentiator there by just having boundaries versus having the right boundaries.
Okay.
What are your thoughts there?
Great distinction. And let's touch on that, because when I bring up like, if you can have boundaries, so you're not working every night and every weekend, but I can also say, and at times that's going to be necessary. So I'm glad you brought that up. I was talking to our good mutual friend, Jasmine Starr, and I was complaining about something that I was having to do in my business. And I said, why am I working on something I don't want to do? And I'm 14 years in now. And she's like, babe, of course we're going to work on the things we don't want to do, because we want to get to a specific place that we really want and desire. And sometimes that means showing up in places or ways that you don't necessarily love, but it's part of what needs to happen. And I am all for that. But so I think you're right. You know, boundaries, incredibly important, and getting clear on what you want to work on and what you want to do. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is, what do you want? What are you going for? What is your end game here? Because you'd be willing to do things that aren't necessarily your favorite to get to that end game. That is a boundary in and of itself. I will do the things that I don't necessarily love as long as they're going to get me to where I want to go.
I love that. And I'm so glad that we clarified that, because I think that sometimes when I open Instagram and I see the entrepreneurs that, you know, we're celebrating freedom and we're celebrating our lifestyle, it also came with a price too. And there's always building involved to get to whatever your goals are. And something that's super important, and I think that I learned this along the way, and I'm sure you did, was defining success on your own terms.
Yes.
So that was something like, I think it's so important for us to be reassessing, because it's so easy to get caught up in what's next in the chase and what's next in the chase. Just continually redefining for yourself if those goals still align with, you know, where you are in your energy space or your goal setting as well. So, you know, what happened after year 2, what clarity came about? And then, you know, you said, oh, now, you know, we see Digital Course Academy, we see all of these amazing programs that you have. You know, at least give us some details along that journey path from, because it wasn't an overnight success.
So I built this business that I hated. 2 years in, I realized I don't like my clients. I don't like the business I created. I have to change this. I was miserable. And so what I decided was, I'm going to fire my clients. And I essentially did. I let go of all my clients, and I was going to go all in with my digital courses. Now, before that time though, while I was still taking clients, I created my first digital course. I wanted to give it a shot, put it out there, and I made a whopping $267 when I thought I was like going to make $100,000. Because when you look around on Instagram, everyone's making millions. So I'm thinking, I'm going to make a lot of money with this. And so I created my course, and I charged $297 for this first digital course. And my profit was $267 at the end, because I only sold a few units and then I had to back out expenses. So I was devastated. I literally cried for a week, and my husband had to tell me, like, let's get out of the pajamas, let's get it together, and like push me back out there. Because I thought, I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. This is way too confusing and hard, and it's not even working. And so my first digital course was a big fat flop. But also, I would never be where I am today if that wasn't a flop, because I learned instantly what I did right and what I did wrong. Like, I didn't have an email list. You need an email list if you're going to grow a business online. I was teaching something that I probably shouldn't have been teaching. So here's another desperate move I made in the beginning. I taught how to use social media to launch a book. I wanted to be known for something. I thought I could help authors. I had never launched a book in my life. So when I teach my students today to create a course, I say, you have to have gotten results for yourself or for somebody else. Teach how you got those results. And I didn't get results in that area. So of course I didn't sell it well. So there's so many messy middles kind of throughout my entire journey. One was my failed launch. And then I made another course, and I made a few thousand. And then I made another course about 6 months later, and I hit my 100,000. But it was definitely 2 steps forward, 1 step back, the entire way.
I love that you shared that. And especially you know, somebody actually told me this morning, I had an interview this morning, and the woman that I was interviewing, I asked her about her like feedback process and how she takes feedback. And she said something to me I've never, ever heard anybody say. She said, feedback is a gift. I was like, oh my God, I have to have her. I was like, I love that. And feedback is truly a gift. And it's constantly, you have to be listening to your customers, what worked, what didn't, and be able to adjust. I think that is honestly, when people look at what are like the traits of entrepreneurs, it's not the smartest person in the room. It's the person who's paying attention to the details. It's the person who's willing to try something new. It's the person who's willing to change, even if they in your DNA, you're like, I want to be known to be a book author. You're like, hey, this isn't working, and be willing to make that pivot. And I loved it today. She's like, feedback is a gift. And I was like, I'm taking that with me. It is so true. Feedback is such a gift.
True. And the feedback can come in so many different ways. It could come from a peer. It can come from a customer. It could also come from the fact that you put a product out there and no one buys. There's your feedback. Instead of saying, I failed, this didn't work, I'm not cut out to do this, which is all the emotions I had on my first launch. It could be like, okay, so I've missed the mark. I am disappointed. This is frustrating, but this is feedback. And essentially I did take it as feedback, because then I switched and created a course I was more suited to create. And so I agree with you. If we just let all those lessons come in instead of blocking them and getting defensive, it changes everything.
I love it. We call it here at CEO School feed forward. And so that's something,
yes.
It's really feed forward, but I love the gift concept of it because gifts are so special. Yeah. And that's what feedback or feed forward is. Amy, this is your now area of expertise. You've built an incredible business. What are some of the top, things that you can teach us tactically on if there's somebody out here that either is thinking about creating a course, already has one, but doesn't know how to effectively market it? I think that's one of the marketing is such a broad term, and the market does feel so saturated. What do you say to those entrepreneurs in the room on how they can stand above the noise?
So when we market how to create a digital course, I have a program that teaches that. We ask, once somebody signs up for like a free class, we say, what is your number one struggle with getting your digital course created and out in the world? And that by far it's marketing. The marketing freaks people out because we typically don't learn this stuff in school. And so when you start to build your own business, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like a foreign language to me. And so the first thing I'll say is that, let's say you have a digital course and you want to market it. You have to think in terms of a marketing suite. And things have changed so drastically over the years. So right now, where we are in this season, in this time, is that a marketing suite will help you immensely to get that course out into the world. And what I mean by that is looking at a few different channels that you feel like you could do well. So easy ones are, you're going to use social media. If you have an email list, you're going to start emailing your list about your course. But from social media and an email list, the other one needs to be a sales vehicle, whether it be a webinar, a 5-day challenge, a video series that leads to a sales video. We need a substantial sales vehicle. And most people that come to me and say, Amy, I have a course, but it's not selling, I'll say, how are you selling it? Well, I talk about it on social media and I email my list. And the biggest thing missing is that sales vehicle. And once you add it, and I think a webinar is the best way to do so. Once you add it, it's like, boom, something clicks. And so that's one of the things that's often missing. But also, I think a lot of people are afraid to niche down. I've been talking to so many course creators over the last week. And one thing I've noticed is they'll put a course out into the world, or any product, a membership, a mastermind, and it's like, how to heal your anxiety or something like that, something very general, how to get healthy. And what I'll always say is that you are literally getting lost in the sea of noise online, because the more general you are, people cannot relate to you. They cannot find you. They don't gravitate toward you. But if you created a course, anxiety for postpartum moms, boom, you got them. They're easy to find. You cut through the noise. You're talking directly to them. And when I encourage my students to niche down their product ideas, the first thing they'll say is, but Amy, I could help everyone. I'm leaving money on the table if I just say I'm for postpartum women. And what I always say is, those who need you will find you, whether they fit perfectly into your niche or not. but you have a whole sea of people that absolutely know you are for them when you niche down. It's a whole different world.
I mean, aren't there riches in the niches?
Yeah, exactly.
The riches are really in the niches. And I do agree with that. And I think that when is the time to actually scale up is when you've actually tackled a vertical or tackled a niche. And then you could say, okay, what are the adjacent categories that we can then help grow? So I absolutely love that. And I want to come back to, you said webinar, you think is the best strategy from a sales vehicle standpoint. We appreciate you saying that because there's so many different ways to kind of bring that out into the world. What about from an advertising standpoint, right? So you've got your organic, you've got your paid. What are some of your, the best kept Amy secrets on actually getting more people to go sign up for that live event or for that webinar?
Okay, so a few different things. So let's take a webinar, also known as a masterclass. There's a lot of different words for it, but I'll tell you the reason why I love a masterclass or a webinar is that if you're going to sell something, you get like 30 to 45 minutes just to give amazing value. I have this mantra on all of my webinars. No matter if they buy or not, they walk away feeling excited, inspired, and driven to take action, no matter if they buy or not. So my best self is coming forward, no matter if people spend money on me or not, and it builds a lot of authentic trust. So that's why I love webinars so much. You get to teach and you get to sell. But the best thing, so number one, I save 80% of my ad budget during any launch for my webinar registration. So the bulk of my paid ads go to webinar registration versus
that's a hot tip right there. We got to write that one down. Like hot
tip, a big one.
Like, that's a big one. Because I have not heard anybody actually say that.
Because most people will take, let's say if you have $20,000, which is a lot of money to spend on paid advertising during a launch. Most people
$500 or $100. Yeah.
I just want to put out there that my students spend $0 on ads because they're just starting out. And I say your first launch, do not waste your time on paid ads. But let's say, 20,000 is a ridiculous number. Let's say you've got $1,000 to spend on ads. Most people would assume you send it to a sales page. You send all your traffic to your sales page. A sales page converts at about 3%. A webinar, when done right, can convert 12, 15%. And also it's a place that builds trust and it's free. So I always say, spend the bulk of your money on your sales vehicle, webinar, sales videos, whatever it might be, not sending directly to the sales page. So that's one big piece right there. But also something we've noticed over the years is that you need a show up live bonus. And so what that means is that you tease this in your pre-webinar emails that you say, okay, if you show up live, I will make sure that you get this special PDF guide, cheat sheet, whatever it might be in the first minute you show up live. And what you do is you pin it to the top of the chat. Anyone who comes live, they get to click it and download it. And the reason why that's important is because show up rates on a webinar can be around 20, 25%, 30% if you're lucky. But if you have an incentive to show up live and you make that a thing, you've got 35, 40% show up. The more people show up, the higher your conversion rates. So having a show up live bonus, very, very important to get people to actually show up there. But let me back up just a second. How do we get them to even register for the webinar in the first place? So with that, sure, ads are going to help immensely, but a lot of my students can't afford ads just yet. So a few things that help. Number one, creating a pre-launch runway. The 30 days before your webinar goes live, before you start having people sign up for it, 30 days before, you're creating content that's fully aligned with whatever your webinar topic in your digital course will be about. So you're putting out podcasts or blog posts or doing IG lives or posting on social, but the topic of those 30 days is directly related to that webinar. So when you invite people to the webinar, they're already engaged in this conversation. It's their next step. The 30 days before a webinar are crucial.
I love this. I mean, we literally just got from the biggest expert, the greatest expert in the field, the best tips to actually go have a successful launch. And I agree with you. I actually launched my first course this year, and it was the CEO School program. This is something that I've been wanting to do for years. And I will tell you the reason I feel like, besides obviously having amazing friends like all of you that have mentored me, but I would say one of the reasons why I was able to have success on my first launch was because I understand conversion at every step. So funnels for me,
Yes.
huge. And I think for entrepreneurs, we expect results so quickly. Whether you are an online entrepreneur, whether you are, own a retail shop, whether you have a SaaS company, whether you have an enterprise company, it does not matter. It's not like from point A to point Z. Your goal is to take your customers through a journey. And I think the journey is the thing that is what you teach, right? Whether it's for a webinar process, whether it's for whatever, we have to get somebody from point A to point B, then from point B to point C. And so what Amy's talking about is driving traffic first. So 30 days, that's okay. We're getting it started. Then we're getting them to register. Then from registration, we're getting them to show up live.
Yeah.
Then from showing up live, we're doing fast acting bonus. Then from there, we're taking them to the sales page, and then whatever things come afterwards. And that's the piece that we have to be actively measuring, is those conversions every step of the way. Because you might honestly have the most amazing end sales page, but you miss steps like C and D and E to actually get them to F.
Absolutely. So beautifully said. It's that we call them micro conversions. It's all the micro conversions all the way leading up till the big shebang, which is buy my product. And if you feel as though you can just go out and say, buy my product, I promise you it doesn't work like that. Maybe 15 years ago, we could have had some success, not today. So micro conversions are especially important.
No, I absolutely love that. So digital courses, I mean, we know where to go. So if anybody like listening live, listening online, listening from wherever you're listening from, we know that Amy is our go-to course expert. So I know you've got a lot of different things for different stages of entrepreneurs along the way. So we'll link things in the show notes, and I'd love to, make sure that we have all of that in there. So if you're thinking about a digital course, we've got Amy as our go-to expert for CEO School. Amy, I'd love to kind of switch gears and talk about something that I'm really excited to learn from you outside of now doing the course, is really the membership area, right? The community building thereafter. I think this is a huge part of of that journey of a customer as well. So if you could kind of talk us through kind of, your community, how that came about, because I love to know the organic side of how you did it first so that we can learn from that, and then your tips as well there.
So community is everything, and it's something that has constantly been evolving in my business. I've had from the get-go, always have had a Facebook group, whether it be, I have a community. I hate that, quite honestly, I'd rather it not be on Facebook, but right now we have done so many different tests, and we have found that people engage more in my community if it's just as easy on Facebook. But it doesn't matter the platform right now. The idea of bringing a community together is so important for the growth of your business, because that's where that know, like, and trust factor is embedded. And so we've always had free communities where I've added value, and I've done Facebook Lives and I've been there for them. And then paid communities as well, where if you buy one of my course, you get into our special community. Or if you're part of my membership, you get into a special community. And one thing that I know more than anything is that people crave connection now more than ever. And so for me, it's evolved into, it used to just be a community that like was peer ran, and then a community where I had more of a presence because I wanted to add value. But then there's only one of me. So I've actually built up a community team. I have 3 people on my community team plus me, so that we can support people in a bigger way, and they get to know my team and not just me. And it's been such a beautiful experience. We know the people that we work with, we understand them. And here's the business side, the marketing side of building a beautiful community. I think I know my audience so well because I pay attention to what they say and do in my own communities. Like, I know what they're thinking, what they think when they wake up in the morning, what they're struggling with, what they're hopeful about. I can talk about her all day long, and that's because I fostered a community.
I agree with that 100%, especially in terms of connection. I think I think I started backwards, actually. So my journey here for CEO School was complete opposite. The community started forming, and then I was like, then we launched
That's great.
the course thereafter. And I think that the women that I served, their number one request was just meeting other entrepreneurs. Like, it is so lonely being a female entrepreneur. And I think I'd love to kind of transition into more life stuff. I know we're going to learn so much from you, but I'd love to kind of talk about Amy the human, on the other side, because it is so lonely. And I think we all crave connection and community at every single level. Even
Absolutely.
today, at my level today, I still crave community and connection. And honestly, the higher that I climb, the lonelier the smaller my circle actually
Mhm.
becomes. And it's so important to keep those relationships and foster those relationships. And I wish I had started earlier to build that community earlier, that I could still have that set of girlfriends that we're kind of growing together with. But it is so important. I'd love to hear your thoughts on just entrepreneurship as a woman, and kind of how you're, balancing, your day to day with just being in a man's world.
Absolutely. One of the things I write in my book a lot is about how I always felt like I needed a man to help me. So first I had a really strict domineering father, and then I had bosses that were men all the way up until I left corporate. And so being in a man's world, but also always having a man tell me what to do, when to do it, and how to do
Yeah.
it. That's something that I really had to step outside of so that I could be my own boss. And so I love that you brought this up. Absolutely, being an entrepreneur, especially a female entrepreneur, can be incredibly lonely. And you're right, as you get more and more successful, that for some reason that circle just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And one of the things I do about that is that I have a husband who's blue collar to the bone. He's a firefighter and does not know anything about the online world. So I can't go to him and say, Hobie, help me figure out this ad spend, that issue that I'm having or whatever. And so I have a few entrepreneurial girlfriends that I text every day. We do voice text check-ins every single day. And it's not a pressure thing. It feels really supportive. And I'll just be like, okay, tell me what you're doing today. Here's what I'm doing. And I'll just rattle it off. And I really do it more for me to get all the thoughts out of my head and just out there. But then she'll give me insight and feedback. And I find it so valuable. So I feel like every female entrepreneur should find 2 or 3 girlfriends that are in the industry as well, not the same job, but in the same space, that you literally can reach out to at any time. They're my lifeline. I've called them crying. I've called them burned out. I've called them excited. They celebrate the wins. They celebrate the losses. They pick me up when I fall, and I do the same for them. One quick thing about that. One of my girlfriends early on, we were texting back and forth years and years ago, and she just came out and said, I need a little more from you. If this is going to be a real friendship, I need you to respond. I need to hear from you. I love that she told me what she needed. And I realized that she might text me a week later. I'd text her back. And I didn't even know like she even wanted that kind of friendship with me. But the minute I knew she did, and I knew I wanted it, it was like game on. So my point being, you have to be the entrepreneurial friend that you're looking for, because it's not fair that you want it, but you're not willing to give it. So I had to show up in a bigger way for my girlfriends like that.
I love it. And honestly, I think that our mastermind group actually taught me how to voice note. So I had never,
It's the greatest thing ever.
I had never knew. And now everybody, like my entire executive team, like is so annoyed with my voice notes, because I think it's the most efficient way to communicate, especially if you're busy and you're running from places. Who has the time to schedule a call? It is the perfect median between text message and a phone call. And we're still over Zoom. So I love that. And I do think that this is really solid advice. It seems really basic, any entrepreneur here listening. This is really solid advice. And this is a lesson that I learned the hard way until I got lonelier. And it's not that I don't have amazing friendships, or I don't have, I'm about to go, hiking with my best friend from college. Like I have really amazing, deep friendships and deep relationships, but it is different to have a friend group that understands where you are in your business as well, and at the stage that you're at as well. And so investing in, whether it's investing yourself, whether it's time, whether it's energy, whether it's the give, whether it's even joining a community, right? That's also an investment. You have to invest yourself to get what you need back as well. And so I love that your friend called you out. I think it's the right, it is, you have to give in order for you to receive. And I love that you shared that advice. I 100% agree with it. And I'm still cultivating this next chapter of friendships as well. So, I think that I think it's so beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that. Also, I love that your husband's a firefighter. That is amazing. That's incredible. So you guys
He's
are
a great
complete
guy.
opposite.
Yeah. Oh, we couldn't be more opposite. But you know what's really fun? For any female entrepreneur who has a partner, whether it be a husband or wife, if you have a partner, they might not understand the business. This is something I learned early on. He doesn't get the business. He doesn't get all the funnels and webinars and all of that, but he does get me. And it's important that I share my thoughts and feelings and let him in so that he feels part of the experience. If I put a wall up and be like, you don't get my business, you don't understand, I'm going to go to my girlfriend's. If I just did that, he'd feel very disconnected with me. And on the days that it's busy, on the days that I'm working like a dog and I have no time for him in the moment, he would feel very resentful. But I let him in. I let him know the challenges I'm having, the people problems. We've all got teams and challenges, and what I'm afraid of and what I'm excited about. I share that with him, and he gets that part. So he feels like he's part of it. And when I have the hard days, he's there to support it because he gets it. So it is important to let our partners in, at least at that level.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I'm actually married to an entrepreneur, and so we have to turn off work,
I bet.
and we have completely different industries and businesses and completely different styles of entrepreneurship as well. So that's really helpful. But sometimes we have to turn it off because we're both like visionaries and idea generators. And so I swear to God, every week we're coming up with something new to go work on. So we have to put ourselves on pause. And speaking of pause, it brings me back to one of my last questions that I have for you, and maybe something that I actually have not had a chance to tell you. We haven't been able to connect in the last few months, but I actually took a 6-week almost sabbatical from life.
Okay.
And it was actually inspired by your sabbatical
I love this.
and it's 100% true. For the first time, when I actually, a little bit of history for the community listening, I joined just a female entrepreneurship group with Amy and Jasmine and Sophia and just like amazing entrepreneurs. And it was just this amazing little bubble of just conversation we had once every 6 weeks. It was awesome. But I was probably one of the most, I mean, everybody had different businesses, but I definitely was one that had a unique, like a technology company.
Yeah.
And so my employee problems were a little different. My scale problems were a little different. And one of the things but I feel like I gained the most out of anybody in the group. And what I feel like I gained the most was actually when you talked about the freedom, like when you were talking about what you were inspired by was the freedom in your circle. That was one of the things that I was most inspired by being in the room, sitting with all of you was, man, I have so much success. I've done so many things, but actually I still don't have the freedom that I started like 10 years ago when I started it. And this year I achieved the biggest milestone that I had ever set out for myself, which was hitting unicorn. And I felt like, I don't even know if that was my dream. Like I wanted to start a business. I wanted to go get to the next milestone and get $1 million business, then a $10 million business. And then we're at $100 million business. And I'm like, did I want this or did this just kind of happen because of the chase? And so a lot of last year for me was this learning about what do I ask for the first time. I asked myself, what is it that I actually want in this next chapter of my life? And so you all inspired me, and particularly you, and how you decided to, you take your time away and you're fully off. And I did it. And it was the best experience of my life.
Oh my gosh.
I
love this.
Yes.
Okay. So I did a 5-week sabbatical this year. You did a 6-week. And one of the things that I did, it was beautiful and I absolutely recommend it. One of the things I struggled with was really turning it off. Like it took me a bit of time to turn my mind off and stop thinking about and worrying about the business. How did you do about stepping back and letting go?
So I will also say that when I say the word sabbatical is probably not a true sabbatical as well. Okay. So I agree with you. I probably had dialed back work I had 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks kind of off and on. And so the first 2 weeks were like straight vacation mode. I'm with my family. So I feel like that didn't even count. It was this all of the vacation things you want to get out of the way. And then the next 4 weeks were really, I was like, okay, I really got to make this count. And so I got to get back into routine. I want to make sure I'm journaling. I want to make sure I have quiet time, like all the things that I'm actually looking to have a complete opposite effect in my life that I don't have,
Yes.
home. So I try to establish really good routines. And I think that is when probably week 3 was when I felt, it took about 3 weeks, I would say, for my mind to fully turn off of work. And unfortunately, there were still a couple of, big initiatives and things that I had to do. And I didn't go in this time being like, I'm taking 100% fully away. So this was my baby step journey into just my baby step journey into it. And so, but it was, I would say I dialed it back at least 60%, I would say, which is a lot, which I said no to so many things. I came back and I said, I just reshifted my energy as well to like what's actually important. I've canceled so much stuff for the rest of this year. I've recalibrated, CEO school. I've recalibrated my energy at Stacks. I've recalibrated my executives team's energy at Stacks. Like I've recalibrated so many different things. But to answer your question, it was probably 3 weeks that it took to really turn the brain off.
And I've heard that the more sabbaticals we take every year, it becomes easier and easier to turn off faster. So it's just, it's kind of like an art and a science to take time away. And even if you just find pockets of time to fully unplug for a series of days, it makes a very big difference. And that's something that I didn't start doing till recently. I could have done it years and years ago. So wherever you are in your journey, you deserve to take time away from this business that is your baby, that you love, that you're growing. Of course, your whole heart and soul is into it. But if you could take some days off or weeks off and come back, you will be even better.
I love it. And I do agree with that. And that's one of the first episode I came back for this season. And I talked about that. It wasn't about taking that much time away either. And now that was a decade of building, I'm able to not only like you work towards those things too, right? We work hard to get towards those things. So, but that didn't mean that I couldn't have taken more time or in different pockets of time or actually unplugged. And so I think that whether it's 3 days that you have, or it's 3 weeks that you have, or it's 6 weeks, whatever the amount is, it's being intentional about it. And I think that was like my biggest kind of like, when I looked back, I was like, I had the same thing. I could have done it sooner. I didn't have to wait 10 years to feel like I deserved to go take it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to let you know, it was definitely inspired.
I love hearing that. Congrats.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the advice. Amy, so what's next for you? I'd love to talk about, kind of, as we're ending this, you have a book coming out. I want to hear all about that. Tell me all the things. What are we working on today?
So right now, at the moment that we're filming, I'm deep into launching Digital Course Academy, which is my signature program, helping people take their knowledge, know-how, and skill set and turn that into a profitable digital course from scratch. So we're really excited about that. But once the doors to Digital Course Academy end, it's all book. So I have a book coming out called 2 Weeks Notice, and it's all about how to leave behind what you no longer want and move toward building your own business. And so it's a step-by-step guide to get started. And I'm really excited about it because I want to help more women get out of the cubicle, get out of corporate, leave behind having a boss, and step into being their own boss and calling the shots and creating a life and a business by their own design. So 2 weeks notice. It's not coming out until February, but we'll start launching it soon.
I love it. I think it's going to be, I know it's going to be an amazing hit. What a beautiful title. And I know it's your journey. It's part of your journey.
Yeah.
As well as I love that it's a step-by-step edition. I'm so excited for DCA to be out as well. Digital Course Academy, for those that don't know about it, is like the signature program, like for creating an online course. So if any of you are thinking about creating an online course, want to learn about creating an online course, have created an online course and it's failed and want to know why, this is the course to take. It is Amy's best work, I will say. So
I think it's my best work too. So thank you so much for saying so.
Yeah. So we'll be linking all of that into our show notes as well. And for all of you with some special codes, so you guys can get access to all of the exclusive things that I'm sure Amy's going to be doing for her special audiences. So we can't wait for that. Amy, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time today. We've really just enjoyed having you here and just learning from you. And we wish you like so much success in your book. We can't wait for 2 weeks notice to be out. We will also, maybe we'll do that in our book club next February.
Yeah.
So we'll put that in as well, but I hope to see you soon in person. I know we've not been able to make that happen.
I
but
know, we're going to make it happen soon.
I'm always down to go to Nashville. So it's always a good time. So, I'll be there when you're free.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much. I love seeing you shine and all the success you've had and how you teach your students how to build amazing businesses. So thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to connect soon.
Thanks, Amy. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for tuning into today's show. If you loved it, leave us a review. We are so proud to bring you authentic conversations, game changer expert guests, and valuable content on and offline. The best compliment you can give us is by screenshotting today's show and tagging us on Instagram at CEO School and at Sanira Madani. We are obsessed with swag, so don't be surprised if we want to send you some. Thanks for tuning into class today, and remember, nothing bad happens when women make more money.